So welcome to you all for today's ECG workshop. It's a continuation. We have looked at the atrial enlargement, left atrial enlargement, right atrial enlargement, and left ventricular hypertrophy, right ventricular hypertrophy, and also looked at the clinical conditions which produce those things. So let us go a little further today. We are all ready. So Dr. Sudhir Garu will be joining very soon. Again, we would restrict ourselves more to our clinical rather than electrophysiological connotations of these things. Electrophysiology is beyond the reach of this workshop, but let us look at clinically. So, AV nodal conduction defects. So there could be a defect in the conduction from the AV node in the bundle branches. There is no specialized conducting system between the SA node and AV node. So we don't have a specialized conducting problem there. వినిపిస్తుందా సార్?
వినిపిస్తుంది.
సరే అయితే మీ మైక్ మ్యూట్ చేసుకోండి, కంటిన్యూ చేద్దాం.
I'm able to hear.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So today we will be looking at the conduction defects, and later on we will go into arrhythmias as a part 3. So this is only just conduction defects only we are looking at, and let us see. Before that, we need to have a very clear understanding of the cardiac conduction. Look here, this is the SA node. And from the SA node, the impulse is carried on to right atrium first, and then the syncytium of the left atrium also is activated. Simultaneously, both the atria are synchronously activated and contract. But remember, from this understanding, there is no specialized conducting system, but the cardiac syncytium itself is the conducting medium there. And the impulse finally converges onto a node which is called the AV node, atrioventricular node. Why this node is required? So if the impulse directly goes into the ventricle, the moment the contraction occurs, before there is a change in the position of the valves, the ventricle starts contracting. So ideally, when the ventricle has to contract, these valves have to be closed and the semilunar valves have to be open. For that, it will take a little delay, and that time is what actually AV nodal delay, and that is the cause of the PR interval, which we have understood. So this is the AV node, and then the bundle starts, and the bundle is divided here in this diagram into left bundle and the right bundle. Normally the septum is activated from the left to the right. So any septal activity is seen as a septal Q wave, which is a physiological Q wave, because it is away from the V5L1 and other left sided leads. This activity is away. So the bundles will be activated simultaneously. There will be a synchronous contraction of both the ventricles at the same time, a very powerful contraction. For that to happen, there is a specialized conducting system. Through the wires, the impulse passes very quickly. Otherwise, for the ventricular musculature, for the impulse to pass through the ventricle's muscle itself, then it takes long time, which we will see when we see the ventricular arrhythmias and premature beats. Okay, now this bundle of his, and then there is a the left branch and the right branch. The left branch divides into a sort of anterior fascicle and a posterior fascicle. This is required because the size of the left ventricle is bigger, so much so that anterior surface and the posterior are simultaneously to be activated. The God has provided there is a sort of two arrangement there in the left side. So it's a three-phase, two on the left side, one on the right side, like a three-phase current for your house. Okay. So why we need to know that? Because isolated block of the posterior fascicle, the one behind, or the anterior fascicle, the one in front, or the right bundle, or a total left bundle can occur. Or there could be conduction defects during this part of it. When it is affecting this, both the bundles are affected. When it is affecting right side, it affects right bundle branch block. When it affects left side, total left bundle branch block. When it affects the anterior fascicular block. Posterior fascicular block. So for that reason, we need to know. Remember, there is no specialized conducting system here, but there is a specialized Purkinje network through the bundle of his and then the two bundle branches. This is to have a very synchronous, powerful contraction of the ventricles. Okay, let us see. Clinically, causes of conduction block. Some people may have, normally also a few people might have physiologically there may be conduction block. Or commonest cause of conduction block is coronary artery disease. That is the artery supplying the conduction area of the muscle. If the branches are blocked, or there is an acute myocardial infarction, there could be conduction block. Old myocardial infarction, pulmonary embolism, aortic stenosis, subacute bacterial endocarditis, abscess on the conduction bundle, and then cardiac trauma, hyperkalemia, tachycardias of various nature, idiopathic fibrosis of the conduction called the Lennox disease, and Lewis disease or calcification of the cardiac conducting skeleton, cardiomyopathies like dilated and obstructive cardiomyopathies, infiltrated tumors like Chagas disease, myxedema, amyloidosis, and ventricular hypertrophy itself can cause conduction delays. There are a host of conditions which can produce conduction blocks. Out of them, the common ones are ischemic heart disease, pulmonary embolism, subacute bacterial endocarditis, and abscess of the conduction bundle and aortic stenosis, and of course left ventricular hypertrophy due to any cause. So these are the clinical features of clinical etiology of conduction block. Now how the ECG looks like, let us see. Now we have gone a little more deeper into the conduction network. We said atria do not have any special conduction bundles like Purkinje network and the left and right, but in fact there are one track called the Bachmann's bundle from the right to the left. So this simultaneously activates the left atrium also. This is for the synchronous activation. And there are internodal tracks between SCA node and the AV node. There is a straight track and there is a left-sided track and the right-sided track. And the importance of that we will deal when we come to the arrhythmias. Remember, there are three relatively less significant than these bundles, but there are all the more, so albeit there are some tracks here, and one is very prominent, that is the Bachmann's bundle. This Bachmann's bundle is important for the simultaneous activation of both the atria. So the impulse is impinged on the AV node, and then you have the bundle of his, the right bundle, the left bundle, anterior and posterior fascicle, and there could be a block in the either in the node or in the bundle of his, or there could be independent blocks of any one of the three parts of the bundles here: anterior fascicle, posterior fascicle, and the right bundle branch block, or a combination of them. Okay. Now here this is much above the bundle branches. It is in the AV node, some AV block. This is that it is classified into three types. All of you would have studied in your physiology as well as in your clinical medicine as undergraduates: first degree AV block, second degree AV block, and third degree AV block. It's very important for us to know because treatment is important for these conditions. What is first degree AV block? What is the normal PR interval? PR interval is from the beginning of the P wave, that's here. PR interval is from the beginning of the P wave to the beginning of the QRS complex. So that is the PR interval. Normally it is 5 small squares or 1 big square or 0.2 seconds. 1 big square is 0.2 seconds. This is the 1 big square. 1 big square is 0.2 seconds, and then 1 small square is 0.04 seconds. How many squares it is? Look here. Carefully look, all of you. So it's starting here. From here to here, it is already 5, 6, 7, 7 squares or 8 squares, 8 small squares, and 7 is 0.28 or 280 milliseconds, 8 is 0.32 or 320 milliseconds, somewhere around 280 to 300 milliseconds, we say PR interval is prolonged. When we say PR interval prolonged, means it is more than 0.2 seconds. Normally, PR interval should be less than 0.2. It has two components, the P wave proper and the PR segment. P wave is 3 small squares or 0.12. PR segment is 0.08. Together they make 0.2 seconds. Normally, when there is a prolongation of PR interval, the P wave duration is not altered, but the PR segment lengthens. So this is what is called the lengthening of the PR interval. First degree Hart block will have the features are there will be a P wave and each P wave is followed by a QRS. There is a P wave, each P wave is followed by a QRS and the RR intervals are perfectly constant. First degree Hart block, every P wave is followed by the QRS just like normal ECG. And the RR intervals you look here, this is 300, 150, 100 and a little that side, so probably around 80. Again here 300, 150, 100, 80. Likewise, everything is the same. That is the PR intervals are constant. Sorry, the RR intervals are constant. Likewise, the PR intervals are also constant. There is no lengthening or shortening of the PR interval. Throughout the PR interval is same, but it is more than 0.2 seconds. Okay, what are the three conditions for first degree Hart block? First of all, each P wave should be followed by a QRS. Then only we can think of a first degree Hart block, like a normal ECG. Second thing is the RR intervals are constant. Third thing is the PR intervals are also constant. And the fourth thing is PR interval is greater than 0.2 seconds. That is what is called the first degree Hart block. Is there any difficulty in understanding this? Very simple, simple English. Now see. Now we go for the second degree Hart block. The second degree Hart block is of two types. One is called the Wenckebach type. The other is called the Mobitz type. Mobitz type is type 2. Wenckebach is the classical type 1. Type 1 classical type, second degree Hart block means Wenckebach's phenomenon. Type 2 is not classical, that is called the Mobitz. What is the difference between them? The AV block, which is type 1, the block in this, the PR interval gets progressively longer until a non-conducted P wave occurs. Understand? PR interval goes on increasing until one QRS complex is dropped. The RR interval of the pause is less than the two preceding RR intervals. Lot of English. You have to go to the graph to understand that. The RR interval after the pause is greater than the RR interval before the pause. Again, lot of English. So let us see that these are the classical rules of Wenckebach. Okay. There is no better way of understanding than this one. This I find is very easy. So let us concentrate first on the type 1, not look at the type 2 now. In the type 1, this is the P wave has originated in the A is atria, AV is AV nodal conduction and V is the ventricular. Okay. When the P wave occurs, after a delay from the P wave start to the end, the beginning of the QRS is the PR interval from here to here. That is less than 0.2 seconds normally. And the QRS complex occurs after the delay of PR interval. So then this is the QRS. So normally the PR interval is 0.2 or less. In type 1, there will be progressive lengthening of the PR interval. Look here, this is the PR interval here, this is the interval there, and this is even longer. So there is a progressive increase in the PR interval for the succeeding complexes. And there will be a complex which is supposed to come here. It is not conducted to the ventricle and stops in the AV node because there is progressive lengthening. Because of that, the AV node is refractory, it fails to conduct to the ventricle. So there is a dropped QRS. Okay, that means there will be a pause between the R waves. This is the R wave, this is the R wave of the QRS. Between them, there is a gap. This RR interval is less than the previous two. Previous two how much? 0.88, 0.75, total 1.35. This is 1.25. So certainly less than that and is greater than the next one. Of course, it will be greater than the next one. These are the conditions. So what is type 1? Type 1 type 1 Wenck-Beck is there is a progressive lengthening of the PR interval. And of course, it is more than 0.2 and it is lengthening until a QRS is dropped and the AV node doesn't conduct the impulse down. When it is dropped, the RR interval look very wide and this width is less than the previous two together. Previous two together is this together and less than that is this one. And of course, it is more than the next RR interval. Now read the English. Classical type 1 Wenck-Beck is an AV block. The PR interval gets longer progressively until a non-conducted P wave occurs, until a atrial impulse is not conducted. The RR interval of the pause, the longer one, is less than the total of the two preceding RR intervals. And the RR interval after the pause is greater than the RR interval before the pause. That is what is important. Let us see. Sorry. So this is the RR interval. After the pause, this is the pause. After the pause, and this is greater than the one before the pause. One before the pause is 0.75. One after that is 0.8. So it's very important for now. You know how important it is to know and measure each one correctly. Now, what are the various features of type 1? I am repeating again. There will be a prolongation of PR interval, first qualification, more than 0.2. Second qualification is there is progressive lengthening of the PR interval. Third thing is a beat must be dropped. And fourth one is in the dropped beat, the RR interval will be having a pause. And this pause is greater than the sum total of the two previous RR intervals. And the one before is smaller than the one after, or the one after the RR interval is larger than the one before. If these conditions are satisfied, it is called type 1 or Wenck-Beck phenomenon. Why we are interested to know so clearly whether it is type 1 or type 2? Treatment differs for that reason only. Now, look at here. Look, see here. So, first of all, there must be a P wave and QRS, P wave, QRS, and there must be a dropped beat. Yes, we have that. And PR should be more than 0.2. That also is satisfied. And after a few beats, there is a dropped beat. And this dropped RR interval is 1180. The sum total of these two is 1320. So that is satisfied. And this one should be larger than this one, 680 versus 640. Typical. This is a typical Wenck-Beck ECG. Look at the increasing PR interval, the duration of the RR interval. Type 1 block is almost located in the AV node. Why I need to know this type 1 or type 2? Because where to place my pacemaker, where to put the leads of my pacemaker, that is very important. If I know it is type 1 block, I will put it in the AV node. And if it is type 2 block, it is below the AV node. So I have to place the leads a little lower. For that reason, it is important to know whether it is type 1 or type 2. Now you understood type 1. Let us look at the type 2. Type 2 Mobich block is an AV block. The PR interval is constant. There is no progressive lengthening. All the PRs are constant until a non-conducted P wave occurs. Suddenly, one P wave will be, one QRS will be missing. And P wave is not conducted now. There must be two consecutive, that's okay. If there is a 2:1, the RR interval of the pause is equal to the preceding RR intervals. Let us see that. So this is type 2. Keep this diagram in mind. This is the best way. So here the PR interval is constant. There is no progressive lengthening. Of course, it will be 0.2 or more. That condition has to be satisfied. And there is a dropped beat here. And exactly this is 2 times. This is what is the RR interval here, and this will be exactly double, and this is again same as that. Okay. So the dropped beat is not conducted from the atria into the ventricle. No QRS has appeared. This pause, RR interval of the pause, is exactly twice the RR interval of the previous as well as of the next. Such a picture is called type 2. Now let us see the ECG for that. Second degree AV block, type 2 with left bundle branch block. Forget about the left bundle part. That we will come once we have the left bundle block, we will understand that. Remember only one thing, when there is a bundle branch block or in type 2 block, the QRS will be wider. Normally you see the QRS in the previous one, very crisp and it finishes within 0.08 or 2 small squares. Whereas here, the QRS is wider, it is somewhere around 4 squares. You see here, 1, 2, 3, nearing 4 squares or more than 0.1. That is one feature. One feature is QRS must be wide. Second thing is this RR, this RR, this RR are same. There is no change. But this one is exactly double this one. So if you measure this is let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is around 6 into 0.2 is equal to 1.2. This one is 1, 2, 3. 3 is 0.6. So 0.6 double that is 1.2, again 0.3, that is 3 small squares, that is 0.6. This is again 6 to 6 big squares, that is 1.2. This is 3 big squares, this is 3 big squares, this is 3 big squares, and this is 6 big squares. So type 2, there is no progressive lengthening of the PR. How do we know? This is the PR, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.2. And this also same. This also same. All the PRs are the same. There is no progressive lengthening of the PR. Second thing is there is a dropped beat after 2 or 3 conductions. It could be 2:1 or 3:1 or 4:1 drop. And the dropped beat produces a pause. The P wave is not conducted down, and that pause is exactly double the RR interval of the previous and the next one. Okay. Type 2 Mobitz AV block, there are 2 consecutive constant PR intervals before the blocked P wave, and the AV block is almost always located in the bundle branches, which means that the QRS duration is wider, indicating complete block of at least one of the bundles. Either it will be associated with an LBB or an RBB or sometimes both. Okay. So type 1, you learned. Just type 1 is, what is type 1? Let me go there. There is an increase in the PR interval, no dropped beat. PR interval is constant, increased more than 0.2, no dropped beat. Normal looking QRS complexes, each P wave is accompanied by the QRS. Now, type 1, the progressive lengthening of the PR interval. First feature. Second feature is there is a dropped beat and there is a RR interval of the dropped pause is less than the summation of the previous two. And the RR interval here is definitely more than the one before the pause. This is because the block is in the AV node proper. The lead has to be placed a little above the AV node or starting at the AV node. Whereas type 2, there is no progressive lengthening, but there is a dropped bit. This is a 3:1 block, or it could be 4:1 or 2:1, and the RR interval of the pause is just double the RR interval, which is already constant. And the PR interval also is constant. And RR intervals are all constant. The pause is exactly double. It's what we have seen. This is the classical Wenckebach ECG, because we see this is 1180 is less than the combination of the two, and the 680 is more than the 640, and the PR interval is progressively lengthening until there is a drop beat. And the QRS is narrow. That means my block is in the level of the AV node. Now, when you go to the second degree heart block, the RR intervals and the PR intervals are constant throughout, but there is a dropped beat after 2 or 3 beats, 2:1 or 3:1 block, And this RR is exactly double the RR here or there. All other RRs are constant. Now, clinically, this is there in the bundle below the AV node. There is a bundle of his, is there? No, there it is there. So it leads to a widened QRS compared to the one normal QRS in that. Okay, so I went twice on the three things. Now you see third degree heart block. Third degree heart block means atria are contracting on their own, ventricles are contracting on their own. There is no atrioventricular synchrony. Normally P wave followed by PR, then the QRS, then the T wave. That pattern is lost. So this is one atrial beat, this is another atrial beat, this is occurring here, it's occurring here, again it is there. In various places on the baseline, the P waves are occurring. And ventricles are contracting on their own. And the rate you see, ventricular rate, 300, 150, 100, 75, 60, 50, 43, 37, even lower. So between 30 and 40. This is a typical ventricular rate. The impulse is originating in the ventricle. This is called the idioventricular rhythm. Idio means it is not getting any communication from the atria. It has got its own inherent excitatory potential, and ventricle's natural excitatory capacity is around 30 to 40. At that rate, only ventricle is contracted. So this means this fellow can go into severe hypotension, or he will have a lot of heart failure because the ventricular rate is so low, it may not perfuse. So he is a definite candidate for a pacemaker. So we have put a pacemaker, and this is where exactly we paste. At the end of the AV node, we have put in the bundle, at the end of the bundle, we put the pacer. So the paced impulse starts here. This is the paced impulse QRS. Now you see regular QRS after the paced impulse, and the P waves are regular before that. So we are not too much worried about whether the P waves are regular or not, because atrial contraction is secondary. Passive transfer of blood is the primary through the AV valves. Ventricular contraction is important. So we need to put a pacer at the end of the AV node or in the bundle, and this is how it looks like. The same person before pacing and after pacing. So what is third degree heart block? Here there is no question of PR interval or anything, because there is no relationship between the P wave and the QRS. P wave is occurring at its own pace and QRS is occurring on its own. There is a dissociation of the atria and ventricle. This is called AV dissociation or idioventricular rhythm. The ventricular complexes will be bizarre with T waves in the opposite direction to the main deflection. Main deflection is positive. This T waves will be opposite, inverted, deep cup-shaped T waves. And the rate will be around 30 to 40. P wave rate will vary. You can calculate the P wave rate by looking at all the P waves for about 2 seconds, for about 20 seconds, and then find out the P wave rate, but not very important. Here, the block is at the level of the AV node, that is below the AV node and in the bundle, and you need just before the bundle branches, you need to insert the pacer there. This is the third degree heart. Now you see, what is the ECG? Is it normal? Definitely not. Why? QRSs are very wide, very bizarre. What is the QRS duration here? It started here and ended here. Almost 5 squares, small squares, or 0.2 seconds. Normal QRS is 0.08. This is very much prolonged. And my T waves are in the opposite direction, and there are bizarre complexes. And the rate is 300, 150, 100, 75, 60, 50, 43, and 37. So somewhere between 30 and 40 is the heart rate, which is idioventricular rhythm. I don't see any P wave at all in this. The P waves, if at all they are there, they are margined in the QRS there, and we don't see any P wave. The pacemaker, because we have put a pacemaker, normally the pacemaker of the heart that's responsible for triggering each heartbeat, ventricular contraction, is the normal pacing is done in the SA node. This is not paced electrically. Normal pacing is from the SA node. However, if the ventricle does not receive triggering signals at a rate high enough for the SA from the SA node or the AV node. AV node rhythmicity is around 60. SA node is around 80. AV node 60. Ventricles around 40. The ventricular myocardium itself becomes the pacemaker. That is, the ventricles escape the impulse from the atria. This is called the ventricular escape rhythm, also called the idioventricular rhythm. Ventricular signals are transmitted cell to cell, not through the Purkinje because they did not come through the bundle and the myocyte. So much so, the conduction system is not used. There is a Bijare wide QRS. Rate is usually around 30 to 40 or 20 to 40. This is a candidate who must get a pacing. Okay, so you understood the three types of heart blocks. Type 1, type 2A, that is Wenckebach, type 2, the type 2 second degree heart block, type 2 block, which is the Mobich, and type 3 block, and the need for the pace. And why we should know. PR interval prolonged, just prolonged, doesn't require any pacing. Only thing is you have to be careful about drugs which increase the PR interval further, so much so he avoids such drugs and see that he will not go into complete heart block. Okay, that's the only thing. Otherwise, we don't require a pacing for simple lengthening of the PR interval as long as the ventricular rate is within reasonable limits of 60 or 70. Okay, now intraventricular conduction defects. Okay, so we looked at the conduction defects here. We looked at the conduction defects in the bundle. We looked at the total heart block, the third degree at the beginning of this one. All the three have been completed. Now we are coming into the bundles. This is the left bundle activating the left ventricle. This is the right bundle activating the right ventricle. Let us say there is a block here and the impulse is not going like this. What will happen? It will activate the left ventricle and the current will go through the myocardium into the right and produce activation. So first this one and again this one, the QRS is going to be wider. First thing happens is there will be a two waves. One wave is related to the left ventricular contraction. The second wave is related to the right ventricular contraction. You can see R dash pattern. The first R wave and second R wave, also called the M pattern, best seen in V1. Right bundle branch block means right ventricular events are best seen in the V1. Septal and right ventricular events in V1, there will be a M pattern there. And remember always T wave should be in the opposite direction. And the complement of that, the S wave in L1 is the left-sided lead, AVL is the left-sided lead, AVL and L1, these two will show a slurred S wave. S wave is wider and slurred. So three important features should be there. One, the QRS duration should be more than 0.08. What is the QRS duration here? You can see how many squares? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 squares. So something around 0.18 seconds. Normal being 0.08 seconds. So there is a lengthening of the QR interval. And QR intervals QRS complexes are wider. QRS is lengthened, QRS is wider, and also interval is more than 0.12. And there is a M pattern in V1 and slurred S wave in L1. Look at only two leads for RBB. Why this is occurring? Because the impulse is not going this way. The septal activation is occurring. That is okay. And then this is the left ventricular activation. The right ventricle is activated through the ventricular myocardium. So much so there is a little delay in the contraction between the two ventricles. You have an R1, R dash. The first one is left ventricular activation. The second one is the right ventricular activation. R dash pattern will be there. It will be seen in V1 and V2 and slurred S waves in L1, AVL and V5, V6 also. So you can see here V5, V6 also. Okay. Let us list the features. Complete right bundle branch block, QRS duration more than 0.12 seconds, fundamental criteria. Second one is R wave in lead one is equal to RS R dash pattern. RSR pattern, RSR dash pattern, or the M pattern. S waves in L1, AVL, and V6 are seen. R wave in the lead AVR also. Here comes the AVR. AVR normally the negative deflection. So the AVR. S wave scenario, R wave in lead AVR may be seen. So there is this is a Q wave like thing and an R wave there. AVR usually is negative deflection. You see a good positive deflection in the AVR lead. So that's not very important. M1, M pattern, RSR pattern and V1, slurred S wave in L1, AVL, V5 and V6. Okay, this is important. And then QRS axis in the right bundle branch block is invariably right axis. See here, this is down and this is up, right means meet. So there will be a right axis will be there. QRS axis is minus 30 to plus 90. Usually it is normal. What is the axis here? Okay, the main deflection here is L1 is up. This is also up. This is also up. This is all four being up is a normal axis. So now axis won't change. Right bundle branch block will not produce a change in the axis. So the features are what we have to do. Now look at the features. Complete RBB, QRS should be more than 0.12. R wave in V1, usually RS or R' pattern will be there. Normally there is no R wave in V1. So if we see a prominent R wave in V1, there are three conditions we listed earlier. Number one is posterior infarction. Number two is right ventricular hypertrophy. Number three is right bundle branch block. S wave in L1 and AVL and V6, which is slurred S wave. Okay, and QRS in RBB is normally not altered. It's normal QRS axis. So incomplete right bundle branch block today, this word incomplete right bundle branch block is not being used. People used to say anything between 0.11 to 0.12 is incomplete. But now we classify whether it is there or not. And don't worry too much about incomplete RBB, incomplete LBB. They don't have any clinical meaning. So it has been terminated. That usage has been terminated. But all the same, it means it has exceeded 0.08, but still not crossed 0.12. That's all it means. Normal ST waves in RBB should be oriented opposite in the direction to the QRS. See here. So this is the QRS up, T wave down. QRS mainly up. So this particularly V1 you have to see here, and here also you see it is up and T waves in the opposite direction. So the main problem is with the slurred S wave which is down, and then the QRS is the T wave is in the opposite direction. So these are the features of complete RBB. Now look at this ECG. Now tell me what is the rate of this ECG. How do I know? This is the line, darker line, 300, 150, 100, 75. Between 75 and 100, maybe around 85, 87 is the heart rate. What is the axis like? This is up, this is up, this is up, this is also up. So there is no shift in the axis. Is there any right atrium? I don't see any right atrial enlargement, no P waves. Is there any left atrium? That also I can't see because the P waves are not really changing. So is there any right ventricular hypertrophy? To say right ventricular hypertrophy, I require right axis which is not there, and right ventricular hypertrophy will be associated with a tall R wave. All right. And a deep S wave will be here, which is not there. And the QRS has no business to become wider, but it is much wider. And there is not an R wave, it's an RS R' pattern. Small r followed by a capital R, bigger R. So the T waves are in the opposite direction. The first criteria, the 0.012 second is crossed. Second criteria, P1, there is an RS-R' pattern, and there is a slurred pattern in VL1, AVL, V5, and V6. And there is axis is kept normal. There is no evidence of right atrial enlargement or left atrial enlargement. This ECG is suggestive of right bundle branch block. Of course, complete we have to say, complete or incomplete, so there's no meaning. It's a case of right bundle branch block. Now let us look at the left bundle branch block. So instead of the impulse going like this, there is a block here, and this part is the right bundle is all right. But first it gets activated, then the impulse from the right bundle has to come to the left side. That results in widening of the QRS. There is a slurred or M pattern L1 now. Okay, L1, AVL, V5, V6. Duration of QRS is increased. There is a bizarre and slurred pattern, and the T waves are opposite in direction. This one. And patient will have invariably a left axis. See here, left leaf. Left axis will be there. Okay, let us see the features. Complete LBB, QRS duration 0.12 seconds. Yes, this is more than 0.12, 0.16 to 0.18 seconds. Then prominent S wave in V1 and R wave in L1, AVL, V6. R wave in L1, AVL, V6 is very prominent, and that prominent has got a bizarre or M pattern, very broad, poor R progression from V1 to V3. That is also important. There is little R wave here. There is very little. There is very little. By this time, by V3, the R wave and S wave should be equal. Almost R wave should have developed. This poor R wave pattern is also suggestive of a left bundle branch block. And then the normal STT waves in LBB should be oriented opposite direction to the QRS. That, of course, is the opposite. Incomplete is anywhere between 0.1 to 0.1. That I am not very interested to highlight, because that nomenclature is rather avoided. So complete LBB, complete RBB. Now let us look at an ECG. Look at the ECG. What is the rate like? 300, 150, 100, 75, around 80 is the heart rate. Okay, we have a very broad QRS in L1, AVL, and also in V6, V5. Slurred R wave is there, and this thing. Another thing is there are deep S waves in V1. That also is there. Duration is wider, almost occupying 3 or 4 squares there. 3 is 0.12, 4 is 0.16, and there is a left axis. Left leaf criteria is satisfied. So this is the left axis, normal heart rate, widened QRS, bizarre QRS here, here, and here, and then deep S waves here, and then primarily T inversion is opposite in direction to the main QRS. All these are satisfied. So it is a case of left bundle branch block. Now, complete left bundle branch block, this we have seen. Now, there is what is called the rate dependent LBB. There's another condition called the rate dependent LBB. If the heart rate, let us say 300, 150, 100, 75 or 70 is the heart rate. Here, 300, 150, 100, 75. It's little more than. Here it is 60 or something like that. Here it is 75. Once the rate has increased from 60 to 75, the LBB manifests. When the rate is lower, what you do? Give a little beta blocker, keep the rate lower, the bundle branch block disappears. Again, you see here the rate 300, 150, 100, 75, 60, maybe around 67 or something like that. Here look at the 300, 150, 100, 75, 60, 50. When the rate is reduced to 50, the LBB disappeared. So rate dependent LBB, it is a sign of ischemic heart disease. If you see a rate dependent LBB, it is itself a sign of ischemic heart disease. Okay. Another important thing is complete LBB is sometimes rate dependent. See LBB when the heart rate is 75 and LBB disappeared when the heart rate is less than 50 in that ECG. And another most important thing as clinicians, if you see a left bundle branch block for the first time in a patient, it is enough evidence to put him in ICU. It is myocardial infarction. No other evidence is required. A simple new onset LBB is evidence of myocardial infarction. Then the question is, how do I know it is new onset? And the symptoms will be there. Patient will have excruciating chest pain and all the features of an infarct, and his previous ECGs will be normal. Around exactly 10 days back, I picked up one patient. He is from Anakapalli. He sent me an ECG. ECG showed LBB. I remember that he had no LBB earlier. I asked him to show me his previous ECG around 6 months back. Previous ECG is normal. The present ECG showed LBB. He had typical left shoulder chest pain. He came with left shoulder chest pain and he is a diabetic. So no warning symptoms are there. We sent him for angio. There is a block of the left circumflex artery. And he was given a PTCA. That is the angioplasty has been done. If you do not remember this, that fellow would have died. So the moment I see LBB in the ECG, I must ask for the old ECG and the symptoms. He is symptomatic. He is a diabetic, 70 years. All probability it is heart attack. And the previous ECG was normal. Clinches the diagnosis, sent to the cardiologist in Pinnacle Hospital in Vizag. And there the cardiologist appreciated that without much clinical evidence of disease, except just picking up the LBB, we have referred him there. He said he has done a very good job. And that is the right way you have to do it. So a new onset LBB is itself an evidence of myocardial infarction. Now, this unfortunately the left bundle has got two fascicles for you, anterior and posterior. You need to know anterior fascicular block and posterior fascicular block also. Majority of the ECGs which are classified as normal, they may have left anterior fascicular block. This is the commonest conduction defect, and again is a sign of underlying ischemic heart disease, not infarction, but ischemic heart disease. Previous one, this one was an infarct, this one was an infarct, whereas here ischemia is suggestive. The commonest conduction defect you can see is left anterior fascicular block, also called the LAFB. Left axis deviation is usually 45 to 90. They will present a very severe left axis. RS complexes in lead 2, 3, AVF and small Q wave in L1 and AVL. I will show you in the ECG. R peak time, that is from the starting of the R wave to the end, it will be delayed because of the anterior, it will be more than 0.08. Total QRS itself is 0.08, and the upstroke of the R wave will be delayed and slurred R wave in the downstroke. Upstroke is delayed, downstroke is slurred. QRS is not widened because it is not complete. Both bundles, both fascicles are not blocked, so QRS is not widened unless there is a coexisting RBB. Poor R progression again in V1 to V3 and deeper SOS in V5, V6. This may mimic LVH voltage in AVL and may mask LVH voltage in V5, V6. So much of English. Let us see that. Most common conduction defect. Okay, that's agreed. Now let us look at the ECG axis. So extreme left axis. This is left lead. So left axis is very dominant. That is seen. Then RS complex in lead 2, 3 AVF. This is the small r and deep S, lead 2, 3 AVF. No R wave. This is a simple small little R wave and an RS complex. Okay. This is not a QS complex. QS means there is not even that little bit R. So this is RS complexes in these three leads suggest left anterior fascicle. What else is there? And then R peak time 0.04. That is from here to go there, it will occupy more than 1 square and there will be slurring of the return component, particularly in the AVL. You can see the return component is not as quick and there is a little slur you can see. Whereas in another ECG, I will show you some other ECG. You see here, this is the bundle. So the return component here, this is slurred again. See, here there is no slurring of the return component. Here you can see a slurring of the return component. You can see very clearly in this case of left anterior fascicular block. Left anterior fascicular block suggests underlying ischemia. And the QRS duration is not widened. That is true. Now QRSs are looking normal. So they are not widened. That's okay. And then we have poor R wave progression V1 to V2. So we expect the R wave to be taller by now. The R waves are not progressing that much. In spite of V4 also, R wave is not very prominent. And then you see mimic LVH voltage in the AVL. You can see here it is more than 11 is LVH. This looks like as though there is LVH, but we don't have the QRS being very tall in these leads. That is why LVH is avoided. Even here also we should have a very tall R wave, which is missing, and it may mask the LVH also, because there is poor R wave on one side, LVH on one side, both will be masked. It may mask the LVH. So again, coming back to anterior fascicular block, most common conduction defect, and looking at this ECG, anybody would pass it as normal unless they look at the left axis. How do I pick it up? Every ECG which shows the left axis, unless there is a left ventricular hypertrophy or left bundle branch block, is an anterior fascicular block. There is no LVH, there is no left bundle branch block here. So much so, this left axis has to be explained by the anterior fascicular block, or there must be another cause of left axis in this particular case. Okay. Now, second thing is L2, L3 AVF, there are only small R and DPS, and then R peak time is more than 0.04 and slurred downstroke. QRS is usually less than 0.12 because there is no complete block. Poor R progression in V1 to V3. Poor R progression, this is poor R progression. R is not progressing as we expect. Even here, we have more S than R. And you can see that the more important thing is mimic LVH voltages in AVL, that is here. And if there is a left ventricular hypertrophy, that can be masked by the left anterior fascicular block. This ECG, if you don't look at the left axis, is generally brushed as normal ECG. In fact, we have found out several patients who had isolated left axis deviation without LVH, without ELBB. We did treadmill. Majority of them are positive for ischemic heart disease. Okay. Now, left posterior fascicular block. So I told you the posterior fascicle goes and innervates the posterior part. The axis is right axis here. Left posterior fascicular block. QRS is not widened. Okay. And then you can see typically the S wave is prominent. Here these three leads will show a positive deflection. And we don't have the M pattern of complete bundle branch block either in the V5, V6 or AVL. Let us see the features. Right axis deviation in the frontal plane, that is evident. Right axis deviation is there. And then RS complex in lead 1. Lead 1 R is smaller and S is deeper. That's also there. And then QR complexes in 2, 3 AVF. QR complexes in 2, 3 AVF. That's also seen. And then, and then usually QRS is not exceeding 0.12. That is there. Must first exclude on clinical grounds other causes of right axis deviation. Simply seeing a right axis deviation, you can't say posterior fascicular block. Is the patient emphysematic? Is it COPD? Does he have mitral stenosis? Is there pulmonary regurgitation? Is there pulmonic stenosis? All causes of right-sided heart involvement or right ventricular involvement have to be excluded before we say it is LAFB. Whereas anterior block, mostly it is LAFB, other causes we have to look at. Here other causes we have to exclude, then only it is a posterior fascicular block. Now, bifascicular block. Here, that means if both the LAFB and posterior are blocked, then it is complete left bundle branch block. We don't have to worry about it. It gives a picture of left bundle branch block. The anterior and posterior both are blocked. It is LBB. But if there is a right bundle with a left anterior, which is a common combination, then you will have the left axis and you will have the right bundle branch block features. This is RSR pattern, widened QRS, typically inverted T wave here, and this is the right bundle branch block pattern. This left axis is the anterior fascicle pattern. So normally in a right bundle branch block, we will not get any axis change. That's what we have seen. But if there is an axis change associated in the form of left axis, it is a combination of LAFB and right bundle. Dr. Deepa has asked me why there is a deep S wave in V1 in case of left ventricular hypertrophy. Is that the question you asked, Deepa?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let us see why it is so. Okay. This is a thick left ventricle. The majority of the voltage is going towards the left side. What are the left-sided leads? L1, AVL, V5, V6 are the left-sided leads. Obviously, they record a very tall deflection, and the combination of this plus this will be more than 35, or this alone more than 13, this alone more than 11. That is what is happening, and there will be associated left axis that is there. Your question is, why am I getting the deep S waves here? Because the majority of the impulse is going towards the left-sided leads. Remember, in the ECG, if the impulse is coming towards the lead, it registers a positive deflection. For example, it registered a positive deflection because L1 is a left-sided lead, AVL is a left-sided lead, V5 and V6 are left-sided leads. So it registers a positive deflection when the current is towards the lead. For example, when a V1 is somewhere here, current is going away from the V1. So when an impulse goes away from the V1, from a lead, it registers a negative deflection. The reason why we see deep S waves are the majority of the electrical impulse, because of the huge left ventricle is toward leftward. Any lead here on the right ventricle, the impulse is going away from that. It registers a negative deflection. Is that clear?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, let us see. I'll show you how to look at axis. Do you think it's a normal ECG or an abnormal ECG? As prima facie, first of all, what is the heart rate? 300, 150, 100, 75, little less than 75. 75 and 60, maybe 70 heart rate. Heart rate is normal. Every P wave is followed by a QRS, and the RR intervals appear by eyeing very, very clearly, nicely spaced, and there is no difference in the RR intervals. So it is a sinus rhythm. So 70 heart rate, sinus rhythm, because PQRS relationship is maintained, and each P wave is followed by this one. There are no conduction defects because there is no progressive lengthening. There are no dropped beats. So there is no type 1, type 2, type 3. Neither there is a right bundle branch block because we don't have M pattern here. Neither there is a left bundle branch block because we don't have an M pattern here. There is no left axis because all are positive. There is no right axis because there is no right mid or left leaf. So the axis is normal. So this ECG is 70 heart rate, sinus rhythm, no conduction defect, no right bundle branch block, no left bundle branch block, axis being normal, no right and left axis, no P pulmonale, I have to look here, P mitral, that also is not there. Perfect. So looks like a normal ECG. Could it be left anterior vesicular block? Because anterior vesicular block looks like a normal ECG, but anterior vesicular block will have a left axis. That is not there. So I am happy. That's also not there. Then how do I say what is the axis here? From the knowledge that I have given you here, if all these 4 leads are there, positive, this is the normal axis. What is the normal axis? Minus 30 to plus 90. Minus 30 AVL to plus 90 AVL is all the normal axis. Now, I want to specifically know what exactly is the axis. Okay. Now, what I did, I just truncated, and then all this part I have cut off, because for my axis, I don't require the chest leads. For my axis deviation, I don't require the chest leads. I only require the limb lead. So I cut off my ECG, and then I cropped the ECG only to show the limb leads. Now, what you have, there are 2 or 3 methods of identifying the exact axis. I will tell you method number 1. Which among the 4 positive deflections is the tallest? Which among the 4 is the tallest? One of you answer. Deepa can answer, or anybody for that matter. Rahul, Govind. Which among the 4 is tall?
Lead 2, sir.
Yes, Lead 2 is the tallest. What is my lead 2 here? This is the lead 2, isn't it? This is 120, 60. This line is the lead 2. Is it positive or negative?
Positive, sir.
Positive. Positive means it must be this side. Negative means it must be that side. So my axis is plus 60, around plus 60. Supposing two things are almost the same, let's say this and this appear to be almost same. Okay? Or when both of them are, it is either here or here, means in between. So the axis in this case is possibly between 60 and 90. That's what you can narrow it down. Look at the tallermost deflection and see whether it is positive or negative. Now in this case, L2 is tallermost deflection. So my main axis is in this direction and I know it is a positive, so it must be here. If this is going to be a negative, then my axis is here, which is very rare axis. This is the normal axis. You understand? That is one method. The simplest method is right mid, left leave, all being positive normal, right mid, left leave, the simplest criteria. The second criteria, whichever is the tallest. Okay. Another thing that you can is, supposing the next thing is, you can plot, I will now try to plot the axis. How do I plot it? How many, what is the deflection in L1? How many? R is 5, S is 3, isn't it? R and S are 5 minus 3, so the actual net deflection is 2. So on the L1, I will mark it as, okay, I can't mark it, it's not a pen, so I have to bring a pen. So L1 I am marking as 2, okay. That is net deflection, 5 plus and 3 minus net. What is L2? Minus is only 1 and plus is 1, 2, 3, that is 15, 16 minus 1, 15. L2 is 15, somewhere here. Okay, and then L3 is 1, 2, 10, 11, 11 minus 1 is 10. So L3 is 10, 10 must be somewhere there. Okay, then AVL is positive is 2 and negative is 7. 7 minus 2 is 5. My AVL lead is here. 5 is, this is 3 I said. 5 I put there. And then what is my AVF? AVF is 1 is negative. 1, 2, 10, 11, 12 minus 1, 11. So that's also 11. Now I connect these points. That's how my heart is. You understand? What did I do? I took each, the positive, negative, I just made it into one number. And what is the net number there, deflection, and then plotted on this, imagining that this is 1 to 0 to 30. You can scale each axis. And then depending on the positive or negative, L1 is positive, so I marked here, L2 is positive, I marked there, AVF is positive, L3 is positive, I marked there, AVF is positive, I marked there. Suppose AVF were to negative, I would have plotted there. So this is one normal axis. So 3 methods now. First, right mid, left leave, all being positive, that is one method. Second thing is, whichever is the tallest, that will be the direction. Third thing is, you actually plot and see. The fourth one is, if you have a neutral lead, that means the positive and negative are almost same, which is that here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is 4. Almost neutral lead is almost 1, and the main axis will be perpendicular to that. So lead 1 axis is 0, perpendicular to that is this one. So somewhere around 90, and this is 60, so my axis is probably here. That is the using the neutral lead. So how many methods I told? 4 methods. Now use that and go to the next ECG. Now one of you help me. I will plot whatever number you say, I will plot. I will not tell you. First start with L1. Govind, what is the net voltage in L1? Downward is 12. Upward is 3, 9. So L1 lead is this one. This is the L1 lead, isn't it? So this lead is the L1 lead. So I have to put 9 points on the L1. Towards which side? Positive side or negative side? It's on the negative side.
Negative side.
Let's say it must be here. Let's say that 9 points. So L2, positive 1, negative
6
5
minus
plus
1.
3, 8. 8 minus 1 is 7. This is also negative. L2 also negative. L2 negative is here. L2 negative, positive is this side, negative is this side, 7. So L3 is 5 up and then 4 down. That is plus 1, plus 1. L3 is plus 1. Somewhere here, plus 1 comes somewhere there. And then AVL. AVL is 1, 2, 3, and this is 6, 7. 7 minus 3 is equal to 4. That is minus. AVL is minus 7. AVL is plus this side. Minus 7 is here. Okay. AVF. AVF is entirely minus. Very little upstroke and 5 millimeters. Minus. Plus is this side. Minus is here. 5. So my heart is like that. Which is normal axis or right axis?
Right axis.
Right axis. Because the heart entirely it's on the right side. There must be some severe right ventricular hypertrophy or carpulmonale or dextrocardia, whatever may be the reason. Now you see right mid criteria. Straight away you can say right axis. Here also you said. And take the neutral lead and then look at it. This is the neutral lead. So L3 is the neutral lead. So this lead is the L3 is the neutral lead. Okay, that is the neutral lead. What is perpendicular to that? Perpendicular to that is this one. So minus 1 is
Minus 1.
that is how you. Or you can use the plotting method, which I have said. Or you can use which is the tallest of all the deflections. Which is the tallest? This one or that one? This is 1, 15, 8, 9. Whereas here, 5 plus 5, 11 minus 4, 7. This is taller. Okay. So then it is in the it is positive. AVR positive is this side. So my axis is this side. That's what the previous one also is telling. Okay. So there are 4 methods of finding out. One, all being upright, right leaf, mid, left leaf criteria, very simple. The second one is whichever is the tallest, that is the direction. Third one is whichever is neutral, so up and down equal. Then up perpendicular, or you actually plot it by taking the numbers of each. Understand? Now, this one you tell. Another doctor, maybe a Dr. Rahul or Tirumala or somebody can do that. Now, what is the axis by looking at it directly?
Like this one. Like this one.
Hello?
What are I'm Tirumala Depo, Amar.
Hello?
Hello, sir. Tirumala Depo, I'm Tirumala. Okay.
Rahul, please open your mic.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you tell me which is the axis by looking at it? Left mid, right leaf criteria.
Left axis
Right mid,
deviation.
left leaf. This is leaving each other. So it is the left axis, definite left axis. Which is the neutral lead? This is the neutral lead more or less.
It.
Isn't it? Neutral lead is L2. What is my L2? This is my L2. Sorry. So this is my L2. Perpendicular to that is this one. So my axis is towards the left side, minus 30 or more that side. Okay, perpendicular to L2. Or I can take whichever is the tallest and see. Whichever is the tallest. This is around 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 525. This 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Even more. This is 8 into 40. So L3 appears to be the tallest of among all the leads. Even AVL also. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 35. This is the tallest. But it is on the negative side. L3, this is the L3 lead. Negative side of L3 is here. So somewhere here is my axis. So between these two. So either I can use whichever is the neutral, or I can use whichever is the taller. I can actually plot also. So this is how much? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 30. 30 is full length here. L1, L2 is neutral. So L2 is somewhere here. And negative is more. L2 negative is more somewhere here. And then L3 negative is very much more. So that we have, how much more? Somewhere here. So hot has started going that side. Now AVL very much positive somewhere here. So it has come there. And then AVF negative deflection. AVF negative lead is here somewhere here. So it has to go like that. That is the heart. It's a left axis deviation. So by looking at the 3 or 4 different ways, simplest being all positive normal, right mate, left lead. Second thing is whichever is the tallest, direction is in there. Whichever is neutral, perpendicular to that. Or you plot and see. Any difficulty in understanding this? So now tell me what is the axis in this? All are positive, so normal axis only. Which is the tallest? L2 appears tallest. L2, L3 AVF. So that is already we have worked out on that. So like that we have to, all the 3 we worked out. And use the different methods. I will share this presentation also. Then what are the, yesterday we asked, what are the causes of right axis? What are the causes of left axis? It may be normal finding in children and thin, tall adults. The right axis may be normal. Right ventricular hypertrophy is one cause of right axis. Right bundle branch block is not the cause of right axis. Okay, chronic lung disease even without pulmonary hypertension. Even without pulmonary hypertension, chronic lung disease, because of the emphysematous change, it tilts the heart rightward, there will be right axis. Anterolateral myocardial infarction, because left side no current is going and looks like a right axis. Left posterior hemiblock, of course it will have right axis. And pulmonary embolism, very much common, WPW syndrome, accessory left-sided pathway, AST and BST. This is a standard question they will ask. What is right axis deviation? What are the causes and what is the ECG changes? Short notes will be there. Remember, this is the slide. Then left axis deviation. A commonest is anterior vesicular block. That is the commonest conduction defect, in fact. Left bundle branch block, left ventricular hypertrophy, inferior MI, ventricular ectopy, paced rhythms, WPW syndrome with an aberrant conduction towards the left side. And that is these are the causes of left axis deviation. Okay, right axis deviation and left axis deviation. And ventricular hypertrophy I have explained to her first. So she had a query, so I explained on that. So what are the methods of finding out the axis? One, you can find out by norm all 4, L1, L2, L3 AVF upright, normal axis. Or you have the right meet, left leave. Criteria, L1 and L3 meeting and L1 and L3 diverge. Or whichever is the tallest deflection, axis in the direction. Or whichever is the neutral deflection, perpendicular to that. Or you plot them exactly the waves and connect all them. You get the shape of the heart on the frontal plane. You don't require to look at chest leads. All you require to look at only the limb leads L1, L2, L3, AVR, AVL, AVF. Okay. Left ventricular hypertrophy and left axis deviation, right axis deviation. The causes you must remember. So today we have discussed what? The atrioventricular conduction defects, type 1 heart block, type 2, the second degree heart block we have got. Type 1 Wenckebach, type 2 Mobich, first degree heart block, second degree heart block, third degree heart block, then left bundle branch block, right bundle branch block, left anterior vesicular block, left posterior vesicular block, combination of left bundle branch block and a left vesicular block with right bundle branch block, LAFP plus RPP. We looked at those things, and we also looked at how to plot the axis. Okay. Any doubts you put in the group, I'll see. Second thing is the question paper will be ready by tomorrow morning or so. I will share it in the group and share with our HOD sir also. He will give it to all of you. And then please answer. Next lesson, we will not get into new chapter, that is the ischemias. We will first digest what we have learned, and then probably next Thursday we will start ischemic heart.